what is this, Vlogtember, or wear as many button-ups as you can within the month of September. Seriously, I think I have an issue. Hello, seeing as it's still the beginning of this month, I thought it would be appropriate to do a August wrap-up. Yeah, that's what it's called. So the good part is that I had a really good reading month, but the bad part is that I left all my books at home so that my sister could read them. I am an angel. So you're just going to have to settle with looking at a picture that I'm going to post at the side of my face. Let's just get right on to it. So the first book that I read in the month of August was When You Reach Me by Rebecca Stead. I had to check if I said the name right, and I think I did. Go Nancy! When You Reach Me is a middle grade contemporary novel that has won the Newbery Award. I would say it's a mixture of Donnie Darko and Bridge to Terabithia, if you could combine those two works. Yes, it involves some sort of time travel, but it also involves a lot of family matters and relationships between friends in middle school. So yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Anyways, I really like this novel. It's probably one of the best books I read this year, and if you remember from the video I did earlier this month about good endings, you have to read that book for the ending. The beginning is not very great, but the ending is what makes it so worth it. So the second book I read last month was 145th Street Short Stories by Walter Dean Myers. As you might not already know, Walter Dean Myers had passed away, I think, a month or two ago, and that was a really sad time because Walter Dean Myers, he influenced young adult contemporary so much, and I really wanted to read a lot of his work, so then I bought Monster and I bought that book of short stories. Well, I really like his book of short stories, and I love short stories so much, so I really appreciated this book collection. What's peculiar about this book collection is that it's not a collection of random short stories all put together into one, as a lot of other short story collections are. Instead, it's a string of short stories that all has to do with 145th Street, which is a street in Harlem. And Walter D. Myers has this really great skill of making everyone human in his stories, and I know that's like kind of the basic thing you need to do to be a writer, but he does it extremely well. And these short stories are actually pretty short, so to be able to accomplish a task of making characters so human and so real is really kind of a huge feat. The third thing I read was a graphic novel, which it's more of a comic book. I don't know the difference. I think they're both the same thing, but I'm not a huge connoisseur of graphic novel, comic books, picture book things. I read Hellboy by Mike Mignola, and I read the first volume of it. I have to say, I think out of all the comic book characters, Hellboy is probably one of my favorites because it just brings up the question of nature versus nurture, because obviously he is a demon, but he is brought up into this world where he's good and he becomes a hero. It makes you question good versus evil so hard, and I just love that. And I really enjoyed just reading the graphic novel anyways. It's very gothic, kind of graphic, but really good. And then the last book I read was the best book I read out of the whole month, and that was Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. I first heard about this book through Alan Janae, and she had so many good things to say about it. So Eleanor Park is about two teenagers in high school in the 80s, so it counts as historical fiction. One teenager, his name is Park, and he is of mixed race. He's half Korean and half white. So obviously he has some conflicts at home with that, his identity and all that stuff. And also it's about another teenager called Eleanor, and she comes from a very broken home, and they meet on a bus together and they fall in love. Isn't that cute? But one thing I really want to emphasize about this novel is that it deserves a trigger warning, especially about domestic violence or abuse or sexual abuse. If you are particularly sensitive to those sorts of topics, then maybe you should avoid this book or just read it with a lot of caution. I'm not sure why people have not brought that up in other reviews or other wrap-ups, because that's something really important, especially if people have gone through those experiences. One of the really great things that Rainbow Rowell does with her characters is that she not only makes them fall in love, because that's kind of a young adult trope that happens a lot, but she also makes them grow together very organically and makes them change by the end of the book. And I just love how there was a person of color and he was so complex and interesting. That was really great for Rainbow Rowell to write about him and to bring him to life like that, because goodness knows we need more diversity in books. And I'm not sure why that's not mentioned more in book reviews and book hauls too. Guys, it's okay to mention race in books. It's fine. So what have you read in the month of August? Please leave them down below and we could discuss it together. And if you don't already know, I'm doing Vlogtember, which is why you have seen my face a lot in your subscription feed. I will see you guys tomorrow with another video. Bye! The description of the food in Grapes of Wrath is really pornographic almost.